right before me, my newfound hippie side.
Welcome to Smart Health Talk Radio Show. I'm Elaine McFadden. I'm your host. I'm a registered dietitian with a master's in public health, and I am here for you. That's right. And we're Smart Health Talk, and we're going to, by the end of this show, if you stick with us and stay tuned, I guarantee that by the end of this show, you're going to be smarter, because we're going to be going over some big-time headlines right now. We'll kind of break those down for you a little bit more, give you our perspective. This is the kind of perspective that you are not going to get on television, because they're not bringing you the real facts about real lives using real science. But that's what we do right here on Smart Health Talk, because we fact check everybody. Yeah, we're not bringing you some fake news here. No fluff, no fillers, man. We're the real deal. So stick with us. And you know what? We got podcasts. We got lots of podcasts, okay? And when you get bored, you're on the bus, you're working in the garden, cleaning the house. If you listen to pretty much any of our podcasts, there's something to learn in there. And there's some important points that I do try to repeat, because it takes people about 13 times to hear something before they finally get it. And I'm hoping that they're getting a little repeat out there to other people in your lives, and you're maybe hearing things on the show, and we got your interest up, and you're going, hey, there's an article on that thing that Elaine was talking about on Smart Health Talk. I think I'll read a little bit more about that. That's what we want to see. That's right. We want you guys curious. We want you thirsty for more information, not just the repeat. I tell you, I listen to TV, it's just okay, I already heard that a million times. You think we could move on to something else? I tell you, that White House, boy, that's just there's never a boring moment going on over there. And when they start making decisions where they're going to destroy half of the world's salmon population and food supply, these are the kind of things that really kind of get our, they get our gumption going here, and they get our anger going, and they get our motivation going, and we say, hey, we can stop that. And you know how come I know? I just watch a whole bunch of people get the NRA really, really nervous, got them shaking in their boots. And these are the people that did this to get it all started, they didn't even finish high school. So I'm like, hey, right on. So, and we've got our engineer here. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and
Well, thank you, Elaine.
Yeah.
I'm Andrew. So
Andrew.
That's it. I do the commercials. I sit here and I mix you and make you sound beautiful. Yeah,
you do. You do a great job. You know, the lighting guy and people like Andrew, anyone that's on the radio, you love them, because, yeah, they're there to make you look good. And not just that, but he's got some pretty good things to say, too. And I love bouncing a few ideas off Andrew.
I do. They have to censor me a lot around here.
Yeah. No, we like opinions here on Smart Health Talk. Well, it's usually, my opinion or a guest's opinion, but we pick really quality guests. And one of our guests that we've had on our show before, back in December, to talk about her book Whitewash, Carrie Gillum, who this woman has so much experience within our government, researching what these big corporations are up to, because we know what they're up to, and that's all about getting the money. It's all about getting the money, conquering. I look at so many of the decisions that we make with our government and money spent, our taxpayer dollars, on bombs and going into these other countries. What are we really there for? Oh, maybe oil, natural gas. Has things really changed? We're still out there conquering other countries.
Fun fact. I wanted to know, because, our country's been around for 200 plus years, 250 years almost. I found out after I did all the math, we've only not had wartime, when you add it all up, about 6 years of our entire existence as a country.
Wow. That's amazing. And that's because it generates money. It keeps industries going. It keeps the young people out of trouble.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what they did back in the Roman times. It's like you got a bunch of young men that want to fight, and they're going to, you know, there's no jobs. You know, what are you going to do? You're going to form an army, and you're going to go conquer. And then they either die or they get rich or they get paid, you know, by plummeting, you know, and stealing and raping and pillaging and all that other stuff that they did. You know, and I feel like, you know, if we really change that much, we have blood on our hands. There are, I was just reading one article about how we've been dumping all this toxic waste from our country in other countries. Grabbing my water here. And, you know, people are suffering from it. They're getting cancer. They're dying, you know, from our toxic waste. And I just asked the question, is this ethical? Is this something that we as Americans want to be responsible for? Are we okay with that? Is whatever product it was that was generated in the process of creating that toxic waste, is that something that we can't live without? You know, that we're willing to create this toxic waste and dump it in other countries and be responsible for other people's deaths, which, you know, this is a hard thing to talk about. It's a hard thing to admit, you know. I wish I could just talk about daisies and tulips and daffodils and those kind of things. Speaking of daffodils, and I've got some daffodils in my backyard. They came up. I'm pretty happy about that. And then we got the dandelions. I have orange flowers all over my yard. And for those of you that think you have to go buy some Roundup because you saw a few daffodils in your yard, I just want to let you know, you don't have to do that. You know, if you do that, you're poisoning your family. You're going to track it into your house. It now becomes an inside toxin as well. And you don't need to do it. The dandelions are not evil. You can, if it's so bad, you can bend down. You can pull it up. There's great tools out there that can help you do it. Why don't you talk to your landscaper and tell them that they don't have to spray it either? Just think, if everyone listening had a talk with their landscaper and said, you know what, I want to be a pesticide-free yard for my family to keep them safe, because we know that Roundup is on the cancer-causing list for California. There's a court case going on right now. We were scheduled to put cancer-causing on every single Roundup product in California, but with that big money that we gave them buying those products around our house, and then you know that drug war, Andrew, that we spent trillions of dollars on?
I'm sure I've seen 1 or 20 Netflix specials on it by now.
Yeah, well, Roundup, when we defoliated Vietnam, when we defoliated the South America from coca leaves and that evil weed, you know, we were using Roundup over there, and people lived there. We were poisoning their food, their home, with
on
Roundup.
Purpose. On purpose.
Yes, on purpose, and with our taxpayer money again. And you know, over something like weed, which never should have been classified as this like class 1, where it's like, you know, like up there with heroin. I mean, this is like this only happened because we lost prohibition. And the guy in charge of prohibition was afraid of losing his job. I mean, how many decisions have been made in our government because people are afraid of losing their job? I talked to someone that actually builds water treatment plants, and he said that cities don't. He is so efficient at cleaning sewage water, and he creates a park and he puts it underground. You don't even know. It's not like that stinky, ugly thing in San Bernardino. You don't even know it's happening. And he's so efficient at it that they don't need as many personnel to run it. So in other words, when they get a contract with him to take over the water, build the water treatment plant, and they can run it or he can run it. They need less employees, and so they say no because of that, because they don't want people to lose their job. You know, I went to one agricultural site because I'm looking at the childhood obesity.
It's pretty bad.
I found places, Andrew, at over 40% for our children. That is almost half the kids are not overweight. We're talking obese.
Yeah.
That means 30% of their body has fat in it. 30% of it is fat. When you're like a teenager in that, I mean, you're like at the prime of your life. You know, you got the like 18% body fat. You know, you could be an athlete and be at like a couple of percent even. But you know, this is like really, really sad, because what happens is when you have an obese child, they have an over 80% chance of being an obese adult.
Right. See, I'm in the millennial age group, and by the time I was in high school, the new generation that was not named yet, which is Gen Z now, Generation Z, the kids that are in high school now.
I'm glad you have it all figured out.
when they were in elementary school and I was in high school, the elementary schools had just started putting in soda machines, and that wasn't something I had in my generation in elementary school. And I'm thinking, why do you need Coca-Cola and Pepsi in elementary school? Really? Don't leave me hanging.
Well, I mean, yeah, I will. I was just seeing if Carrie had emailed me back, because she's over there at Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
They're actually in court right now, so she's going to, when they're over is when she's going to be calling in. But yeah, I have all the experience in the world, because I actually work for the San Bernardino County Public Health Nutrition Department for 5 years, getting sodas off school campuses.
It's pretty bad.
I went to Fontana High School. I work with the students there, and you know, the attitude was, you know, they're like, you know, they were there for the free food that I bring, okay, to talk to me.
Well,
right?
that's how you bait them. You just give them free food, they'll eat it.
Oh, exactly, you know, and they weren't real happy I was there. I wanted to take away their soda. And it was so upsetting, because at noon I'd go out there and there was a sea of hot Cheetos and soda. And we're talking a 750 calorie bag of hot Cheetos full of GMOs, trans fats, artificial flavors, full of all these chemicals, artificial colors, I mean, on and on. And then, so no nutritional value, zero. It's a negative. It's like a big negative. and then we have a 20-ounce soda that was 250 calories. And, you know, that was nothing but sugar, GMO sugar, high fructose corn syrup. So we have sugar and hot Cheetos full of like GMOs and chemicals, and that they have no breakfast. They have not eaten for like, you know, 16 hours or longer. And we feed them that meal, and we expect them to behave and concentrate and get A's on tests in the classroom when that is what we fed them.
Gotta love the irony.
You know, and it's all about making money. Yep. I got a big old reality check, because what it comes down to is the school district is desperate for money, and the school food service department has the potential to make up for that difference. But the thing is, they're getting money from the USDA, and they're not supposed to be making money. They're supposed to be providing a service. They're supposed to be teaching our kids good nutrition. That's their job. Their job is not to make a buck off my kid going to school and give them dental cavities for the rest of their life, a hole in their tooth, their permanent tooth, and to make them obese. I had a girl crying to me. She had just finished high school. She was still 18. She had just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. It's heavy.
Yes, that's, you know, that's a big deal. You can lose your eyesight. It's the biggest cause of loss of limbs. Medication, expensive medication that people have to be on, and then the injections, and then, You know, there's you lose feeling in your toes and your fingertips, and you go blind. It's the #1 cause of blindness. This is just such a bad deal for an 18-year-old, and she was very upset, and she knew it was from the food she was eating at school and at home. But the thing is, these food service people would be like, oh, well, I'm not, those parents are feeding them junk food. And I'm like, yeah, but no one has taught them to be a nutrition expert. They maybe never learned about what good nutrition was. How can I blame them? And then they're bombarded by commercials that are full of lies, tricking them into buying the crap, thinking they're being a good mom or dad, or caregiver. And it's just not right. And you guys are supposed to be teaching good nutrition, because you may be the only source of information of good nutrition, and exposing them to vegetables maybe for the first time. They may never have them at home, except maybe a slice of tomato or lettuce on a hamburger. And I tell you, just pushing these hamburgers, let me tell you, they're talking about, In-N-Out's got a pop-up now with a mile-long line. Does everyone realize that these great hamburgers are nothing but a chunk of meat that was probably raised in a factory farm using GMO feed, probably down in Brazil, where they have them packed in like crazy. Oh yeah, and then we had to burn the Amazon rainforest down so that we had land to raise that cattle, so you could have that In-N-Out hamburger. Oh boy, yeah, that's just so yummy and so worth it. I'm going to stand in line for an hour for that. You know what I put a lot more weight on is that grass-fed organic burger I bought from my local farmer who raised that cow himself, eating grass, getting sunshine, so there's vitamin D involved in this whole equation, which does transfer to the meat. And it turns out that actually lard is one of the best sources of vitamin D out there, and that is pig fat. But we don't get that anymore because you don't even see lard anywhere, and it's so full of pesticides that do you really want it? So that hamburger meat that I got from my local farmer, that he processed himself and everything, that's full of omega-3s that are good for my brain, not some GMO protein fragments that are left in there from when they fed it, and the pesticide residue that's left in there. Heck no. Man, I got myself some prime meat there, prime hamburger, that I know the person that even raised that cow.
When you do the grass-fed cows like that too, you could literally taste the difference. If you're a meat lover, you can literally taste the difference between a chemically treated cow and one that's fed grass.
Well, and I'm glad that you brought that up, Andrew, because some people it is a foreign taste to them.
Yeah.
And the first time they taste grass-fed beef, they may have the same experience I did.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay, wait a minute. It don't taste like that regular hamburger that I'm used to eating. So I was like, I don't know.
True story. I was vegan for about 1.5 years, 2 years.
I did it for about a year.
And I did cheat from time to time. Times got tough, and I needed to get a burger, I needed to get a taco or something, and
for $1.
For $1, right? So. But what was really interesting to me, and it was all, it was not like I was actively thinking this, but I figured it out later. When I would stop at certain locations to get like a hamburger, or a taco and stuff, I would get immediately sick afterwards and get a migraine. And then there were other times where I was a little more smarter and where I got my hamburgers from, and I wouldn't have an issue. And then that's when I realized, oh, it's because all this fake stuff is in the meat at these different fast food places that I went versus where I got a grass-fed patty. So that's how I learned, wow, there really is something in these meats.
Your body does become more sensitive.
Yeah.
As you stop eating all of these other things, you become desensitized.
And the only bad part about it was trial and error. I had to learn. So now I know. Now I know where I can go and not go.
It is getting used to the taste.
Yeah, exactly.
Because at first it was a little bit, it did kind of put me off a little bit, and I was kind of like, I don't know if I can get used to this taste. I was kind of wondering at first, but as you just start eating it more, it all of a sudden that becomes the norm. It's like when I started getting the raw milk delivered to my house in the glass jars. It's only like 4 hours new, right from cinnamon, the Jersey cow that eats grass all day and stands in the sun when it's out. Again, vitamin D is in my milk. They did not have to put some synthetic form of vitamin D in the milk because the cow that I get mine from actually stands in the sun.
Yeah.
You know, this is how the vitamins get in there, folks. And that even the raw milk at first, you're just kind of like, I don't know, you know, there's this weird like metal thing going on in there because you've been so conditioned, you know, to think these things are foreign or yuck or whatever, you know.
Right,
I mean,
right.
This is like, I got like the pure, man. This is like the high quality.
Yeah.
The best stuff I could probably.
But let me ask you, how much is that bottle of milk, that glass bottle that comes to your house?
Okay, well, it is $17
Okay.
for a half gallon.
Yeah.
But you know what? That milk is like a real meal to me. It's my probiotics, which I also get.
It's more filling.
I get BioK.
Yeah.
And BioK is like a few bucks a shot just for the BioK for 50. But I'm getting that in my milk, where all the other milks, it's all been killed.
Yeah.
The protein's denatured so you can have an allergic reaction to it. The fat globules have been broken open and they spill in the milk and they start going rancid, where the fat globules are in perfect condition. It's never been homogenized, never been pasteurized, never heated. Even the immunoglobulins, which are so sensitive but actually stimulate your immune system and heal your gut from all that glyphosate and products, that's what helps to heal it. And I have lost 35 pounds in the past year since I've been drinking the milk.
I'm sorry. Wait, how much in the last year?
Yeah, 35 pounds from drink, and I haven't exercised at all. And the reason I didn't exercise is because my thyroid tested high because I found out they're spraying pesticides all around me in Loma Linda.
Yeah.
The hospital is spraying some of the worst. Even the Loma Linda Academy, the schools are, the farmers are, people, my neighbors on each side of me were spraying, having heavy-duty pesticide sprayed for nothing. It was very upsetting. And here I am struggling, trying to fight for my health. Well, I started change my diet, putting all these vitamin D foods in, which was the milk, like I told you, I got pork, the pig had actually been outside, so the lard has like something like 25,000 IUs in it or something like that. It's some incredible amount, way higher than anything else out there. Mm-hmm. There's cod liver oil, of course, that's really good. But anyway, so I'm getting all those things in my milk. And it's really like part of my meal. I count it as part of my meal. Where the other calories, in the back of my mind, I kept saying, you know, it's not raw. It's been heat treated. Organic Valley, I love those people, but they use ultra high pasteurization, ultra high temperature, which puts it at like over 200 degrees for a few seconds, but it's still denaturing the protein. People get inflammatory response, allergic reactions when you denature the protein. You change the form of it. Proteins are so complicated. They have multiple layers. They bend and twist and make these special shapes. And yet these people in the lab are claiming they can make CRISPRs and all these things that are perfect every time. But when I have read that if you change a protein even the tiniest little bit, it's going to cause an allergic reaction. So that's why all these GMOs and pesticides we're eating, these have protein fragments in there that are foreign to our bodies, and they're causing a continual allergic reaction. I just saw that here's an article that's telling people natural American Spirit cigarettes fool smokers into thinking they're healthier. Okay, these people are selling like the original cigarettes, which was nothing but a piece of rolled up organic tobacco. They're selling that, and I hate cigarettes. Those cigarettes that they sell on the shelf have hundreds of toxic chemicals besides being GMO and raised with pesticides. There's probably hardly any real tobacco in there. But they put addictive secret chemicals in there. So obviously, anyone selling something that has just organic tobacco in it is going to be a threat to those people. And so they have to put down the organic tobacco cigarettes, which, hey, I don't want anyone smoking tobacco, but, you know, I don't even know if that's very much different than just smoking marijuana. I don't really have the research on that because we don't have any. Because all there were was like those cancer stick cigarettes, which, of course, secondhand smoke. And as a public health dietitian, I don't believe in subjecting our children to that, and I know that it's very, very toxic. And that's because the cigarette starts off being very toxic. And people smoke these vape pens, or the kids smoke a vape, cigarette.
Yeah. Fun fact, and I say that in the most ironic way, the Truth nonprofit that does the commercials about cigarettes nowadays, I didn't know this, but the nicotine in the cigarettes nowadays, it's genetically enhanced. Yes. So you're getting double nicotine now in a cigarette than versus 10 or 15 years ago.
Well, I've talked on the show before about the business of addiction.
Yeah.
Addiction is big money. It's big money, Andrew, And you just think about it. That's always their goal, is to get you addicted. All right? That's what I have warned people. There is a secret company in San Diego. There's maybe other ones too. I know of this one. Those where it says artificial flavor, there can be 50 to 100 chemicals it takes to make that fake flavor. Things I have never heard of.
Yeah.
And so if you want something to taste like strawberry, it could take 50 chemicals. But not only do they make that kind of fake flavor, they make flavor to make pizza taste better, to make cheese taste different, to make all kinds of things have an addictive quality where it targets that part of your brain. They know how to target it.
Yeah, they've done research and MRIs on this to know that that's how that happens.
Yeah, this is how we're going to hit that part, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to give them pleasure when they eat our food, so they're craving it, so they're dreaming of it. And there was like a story from like Yemen or Saudi Arabia or one of those countries, and we've just invaded them with our fast food, and they're all fat now. They were delivering Domino's pizza 3 times to one house in a day. You're just like, what the heck? They're craving it. It's the perfect example. And then all they talk about is the flavor. Oh, it's the flavor that gets me. It just tastes so good. And I'm just like, these people are addicted and they don't even know it.
Yeah.
And they're making us addicted to things that is destroying the rainforest. And then these corporations want to destroy our monuments for oil, something that we shouldn't be investing another dollar in. They spent billions on that pipeline, that Dakota pipeline.
Yeah.
We had people calling in right from Standing Rock, giving us reports. We had Zen Honeycutt talking about how they were treating people. They were actually zapping them, so it took all the battery power out of their phones and their electronic devices. It blocked the internet. They could not get out.
Yeah, there's devices that can actually do that in a X amount radius, Yeah.
They were doing it to them. Our government was using this against them. But
so they don't get the word out,
So they bought all this land, destroyed all this land to build this pipeline, which has the crude oil. I mean, this is the dirtiest of the dirty, the most toxic oil of all. And the thing is, it's so thick, it won't even move through the pipe. So they have to mix all these other toxic chemicals with it. They have to mix all these other toxic chemicals with it. Here, Carrie's trying to call us, so I'm going to go ahead and let Andrew take it. And call her back if you need to. And so we'll be having Carrie Gillum on here, anyone.
Hello, Carrie.
But yeah, they will. Oh, yeah, go ahead, and if you need to, you can call her back.
Hello, Carrie.
Okay, everyone, we're trying to get Carrie Gillum on the phone. And so that was just a little lesson on pesticides, because we talk about that a lot around here. Oh yeah, and by the way, bluemonarchproject.com. Please go and visit us at Blue Monarch Project. We're going to be doing pop-up plant sales with organic nectar plants, organic milkweed for our monarchs. We're trying to bring our monarchs back. And we're going to have this plant sale, and if you tune in, you can see that I have some of our nectar plants. And I got these last year, and over winter, they stayed really healthy, and right now I'm getting all kinds of new flowers on them. So when you buy our plants, not only do they have no pesticides, but they have staying power. They will be so healthy, you'll have them for the next year. I have milkweed here. We're going to have native milkweed, and we're hoping that we're going to have the plants by the 12th. We have our big food show this week, and then we're going to start going to Grove Market next week. And we'll be at Grove Market, and we're also going to be here at KCAA with plants. So look for, just keep checking back on our Blue Monarch Project.com website, listening to KCAA, because we're going to be running the promos. They're going to tell you where you can get the plants. You can contact us directly at info@bluemonarchproject.com, and you can always reach out to me directly, Elaine at smarthealthtalk.com. And over at Blue Monarch Project, you can look at our milkweed, and you can see some pictures of the nectar plants we'll be having next month. And let us know if you need a bunch of plants. Some people buy, 30, 50 milkweed plants at a time, or redoing your whole yard. I hope you'll think about us first and let us help get you set up with plants, because this helps us be here and able to talk to you guys and have all our great guests. And these plants will not kill bees and butterflies. We know from Dr. Lundgren that even at half the dose, which is, it's still 100% death of bees and butterflies and all the beneficial insects. And when we were talking about the vape pens, I wanted to mention that those oils that people are smoking for the marijuana, that's like 60,000 times the amount of pesticide that is supposed to be in there, because it's so concentrated. And with the vape pens, we were talking about chemicals and different things that we'll find in there, and addiction type chemicals and other harmful chemicals, flavors, those kind of things. Well, there's another whole set of chemicals that you're intaking for what, not something I recommend. Okay. I don't know, these organic tobacco cigarettes are looking a little bit safer to me than some of these other things. I'm sorry. So how are we doing with Carrie? Is she there? Oh, okay.
Sure.
Hey, Carrie.
Can you hear me all right?
Yes, I can hear you great. Thank you so much for calling in. So we've got about 15 minutes left, and I want to hear what is going on, because why don't you tell everyone, this is Carrie Gillum. She's the author of Whitewash. It's an incredible book. If you really want to know the truth about what's going on behind the scenes in our government with policy decisions which impact what you eat every single day, the air you're breathing, the water you're drinking, all these kinds of things. Carrie has been in there researching these things and understands how things are really happening. And we don't get the whole story, trust me. You do on Smart Health Talk, but you're not getting it from television. But Carrie will give you the whole story in her book, Whitewashed. Okay, Carrie, so first of all, where are you?
All right. I am on a bench in the 19th floor of the federal courthouse building in San Francisco.
Okay.
And I've been here all day. I told your producer I'm a little brain dead, probably. But what is happening here is really significant. And there have been press here from overseas, actually, to cover this. This is the Science Week in the litigation that's brought by cancer victims, people who have developed non-Hodgkin lymphoma or their loved ones who have died. They have filed on their behalf lawsuits against Monsanto alleging that Roundup caused them to develop this disease. Roundup herbicide, which is made with glyphosate, of course, is the active ingredient. And your listeners probably know, this is a very controversial subject, whether or not this chemical, which is the most widely used pesticide in agriculture in the world, causes cancer or not. And our International Agency for Research on Cancer declared it to be a probable human carcinogen in 2015, which led, to this flood of litigation against Monsanto. So what is happening today is really remarkable, or this week, Monday through Friday. Expert scientists have been brought in to lay out for the judge in this case, in public sworn testimony for all to see, to go through the science and essentially analyze it for the judge. And we have plaintiff's witnesses as well as defense witnesses. And it's really, especially today, the Monsanto attorneys are cross-examining these epidemiology experts who are speaking on behalf of the plaintiffs, and it's getting quite testy in some of the exchanges. So it's really interesting. At the end of all of this, when it concludes, the judge will decide whether or not the scientific evidence and the experts have provided sufficient, weight for the judge to allow these cases to go forward to a jury. So that's what's going on here. And as I said, if you're somebody like me who's really concerned about pesticides, and particularly this most widely used one, and concerned about the science and what's been manipulated and hidden, this is a place to be because it's all being laid out there for public testimony.
Well, and the decision that's happening in California actually will have a ripple effect worldwide.
Well, it definitely will in terms of this court case. The attorneys all sort of have the sense that if the judge turns this back, if he says you don't have the science on your side or you haven't convinced me that your experts, can prove this, the lawsuits probably don't have, much wind behind them. It doesn't kill them outright, but effectively it would in the long run. And on the opposite point, if he says, yes, you can go forward, your scientific evidence is sufficient, you can go forward and we'll take this to a jury, the lawyers are telling me many, many more thousands of people will be, rushing to file lawsuits. So this is a big deal this week, Science Week.
Well, how come, Carrie, that the way the burden of proof is going, that we have to prove that this is safe? It's like, we're having to prove it's safe. How come Monsanto's not? Are they having to prove it's safe at the equal level that the other side is?
Well, the plaintiffs, of course, are trying to prove it's not safe, while Monsanto is saying that it is. But, the burden of proof is really on the plaintiffs, as you said. This is something that's been used since 1974 in the United States, and Monsanto has long claimed it has science on its side. And that it has the regulatory backing, from our EPA and regulators around the world to affirm that. But what we've seen come out in this litigation is Monsanto's been forced to turn over a lot of internal documents, emails and reports, memorandum, and communications between their own scientists and regulators. And what we've seen is a very, in my opinion, significant level of deception and deceptive tactics strategically employed by Monsanto to manipulate the scientific record and to convince regulators to assess the science in ways that favors Monsanto. And these are all laid out in these internal Monsanto documents about how they discuss ghostwriting research papers and, secretly enlisting the aid of academics and professors as they funnel money their direction and wanting to keep it all secret as they get these professionals to, tout the safety of their products. And there's as I said, a whole array of deceptive tactics that come out in the evidence, and that doesn't bode well for Monsanto. But at this point, the focus is on the published peer-reviewed epidemiology and toxicology data that exists for glyphosate.
Well, I know that I had seen one document that showed back in 1984 that they had actually done research at the EPA on glyphosate, and I was able to track down the reviewer who had signed off on that data. The scientist had passed away, and the other person, I think they had passed away too, but I contacted her and I sent her the paper that she had signed. And in that paper, the results were that glyphosate caused a rare kidney tumor. And their conclusion was that it was carcinogenic and that it should not be approved. And she said that we had the best scientists who had ethics, we had the best equipment, that they knew how big it was, so they were extremely careful on everything that they looked at, and that she reviewed the data many times before she signed off on it, and she still stands by her position of approving that research and their conclusion today.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're talking about that mouse study, Knevich and Hogan, which was very controversial because the EPA, as you're describing, the EPA scientists at the time that it was brought to them did say this glyphosate is causing rare kidney tumors in mice, and the control group, the mice who were not exposed to glyphosate, show no rare tumors. And they said that this looked like it could cause cancer. Now, that was very early on, and Monsanto objected to that assessment and put a lot of pressure and employed a lot of strategies to convince the EPA higher-ups to overrule their own scientists, and they were successful in doing that. And that study actually is part of this scientific hearing here in San Francisco. The plaintiffs want to bring in that evidence, and Monsanto has objected and wants to keep a lot of it out of the courtroom, and so there's a little bit of a battle that we may see shape up here over that.
And what about long-term studies? There's no real long-term studies, and that was one of the things that Sarah Leaney had done, was
Right.
go underground with a group of scientists. It wasn't just him, and they did a 2-year study. But what he told me when I had got a chance to meet and talk with him once, he said the problem was that all these other studies are feeding GMO feed to the rats. So pretty much all these studies really don't have any weight because they're feeding the rats GMO feed. And that's what threw off his study compared to the other studies. And that's why they said that these rats have a tendency towards mammillary tumors, was because they had been feeding them GMO feed. As all these labs, that's what they do. They have a place where they were getting the feed, and it's all GMO. And he said that's what threw his study off. But they were ready with his results. They were ready to deregulate, to say that Roundup could not be used in Europe anymore. They were ready to actually move forward with that. It was a 2-year study. It was like the first long-term study that we had. Actually, from what Dr. Seneff told me, that we had some long-term studies. They were buried, and that Anthony Samsel, Dr. Samsel, had been able to get some documents from the EPA, but he wasn't allowed to share them for some reason, which is going against the Freedom of Information Act.
I have those same studies, and I had to sign probably the same agreement he did with the EPA. It is an odd part of the Freedom
Well,
of
what did they
Information Act.
say, Carrie, that, are they trying to hide so much?
Well, they give you the studies on a disc. I have them on a disc, but I did have to sign an agreement that says I won't share them or, make use of them commercially or publicly or that sort of thing. So you can look at them and read them, but you can't share them or have anybody analyze them because they're considered trade secret. And many of them are stamped, Monsanto, confidential trade secret and that sort of thing.
Well, did they say that Roundup is safe, or was it the opposite?
Oh, there's thousands and thousands of pages of data, and again, it's how you interpret the data. I don't know that I've ever seen any study that says, concludes with Roundup is safe. Or Roundup is not safe.
Explain that, Carrie, because you just said interprets the data, and like you said, they're presenting these different studies, but
right.
You could choose like 1,000 different ways to interpret data.
Well, yeah, I mean, they're looking at odds ratios. They're looking at different levels of statistical significance. And what a couple of the different scientists today testified, and it stuck with me, no scientific study is perfect. Scientists don't consider, a single scientific study in isolation to be definitive. They don't consider it to be the perfect science because there are always going to be sort of maybe confounding factors or errors in certain. It depends on if it's epidemiology or toxicology, but what they're focused on is they're saying you take the weight of evidence. You don't look at one study or two or three or four. You look at a lot of different studies that are done over a course of time, that are robust and that are peer-reviewed and that are published, and you put all of that together, and if you see a trend, if you see over and over and over again that, yes, this chemical seems to have an association with all these people developing non-Hodgkin lymphoma, that's meaningful. And that's what they're seeing in all of these studies.
But wait a minute, Carrie. What about the World Health Organization study where they looked at the whole product? Because what Dr. Senev said also is that all these chemicals, Roundup as a whole has over 100 chemicals in it, and all of those chemicals are tested in isolation. They're never tested after we mix them together and create these new chemicals. And what was different, I understood from the World Health Organization study, was they actually looked at the whole product, including those other chemicals and the interaction of those chemicals, versus just the glyphosate active ingredient.
Are you talking about IARC?
Yes, the IARC study, yes.
IARC looked at, so IARC didn't do any new research, right? They only looked at existing studies that had already been done. And they did look at studies that were done on formulated products, on different Roundup formulations. But they also looked at studies that were done only on glyphosate. So they looked at both. They looked at sort of the universe of published peer-reviewed studies. But
I wondered about
that. It's true. Well, and you can read the monograph. It's up on their website, and you can read the whole thing. I can't even remember how many pages, 100 maybe. But it is true that our EPA does not require extensive long-term tests on the safety of the formulation, which is Roundup, which is what we buy and we use and we spray, and it's in our food and our water.
They're only looking at like 3 months to maybe a year, not anything like 2-3 years, and we're taking it all that time. So.
And they look at only the active ingredient. They only require these extensive long-term tests on the active ingredient, which in the case of Roundup is glyphosate. So
which is weak.
You have right, and you have the co-formulants like POEA, the surfactants, and others that, as Seralini and others have found, can be much more toxic than glyphosate by itself. So there are a lot of shortcomings.
Well, I hope they're going to be talking about that in that in that courthouse. But everyone, Carrie Gillum, Whitewashed is her book. Go find her on Twitter. She's an avid tweeter. She'll keep you up to date. Follow her, please. Hey, and follow Smart Health Talk while you're at it too, and find us on YouTube and all the other social media. And go look for the book. Okay, you'll find it on Amazon, I'm sure. And go find her. Do you have a Facebook too, or a website?
I do have a Facebook page. I've been live tweeting though from the courtroom. So that's good if you're interested in this. And
so the Twitter was a good recommendation.
Twitter is a good recommendation.
Okay.
We're also blogging on US Right to Know from the courtroom.
Oh, okay. Okay, so there's 2 references, everyone. And please call your representative and let them know what you think, all right? If you don't like this, you don't want poison in your food, let them know, please, because your voice matters. And thanks for tuning in to Smart Health Talk. And you picked the right radio station to listen to, KCAA, and find us on iHeartRadio with our podcast, everyone. And we're going to be working on this video and getting it up on YouTube and sharing it, so you can share it with someone else too. All right? Okay, we'll be back here Tuesday at 4 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Elaine McFadden. Bye.